Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
For an appearance on Saturday morning, but Schmitty on the road to Denver, Colorado, as he the legend, it's Willie J. Will Wilson with us here on a Thursday. I know Will's tried to retire that moniker of Willie J, but it just sticks around with you, bud.
I know, and I've came to the conclusion that for as long as I live, that will never die. It's not that I hate it, it's just trying to be more professional around here,
Well, I feel like you got your two alter egos. You got your sports side, and then you got your country music side.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. And I'm not, you nailed it, man.
You hear Will Wilson on ESPN Lincoln. You hear Willie J on Kicks 96.9.
That's right.
That's the difference.
And you hear Elijah Herbel right here. How's it going, man?
Can't complain. It's a nice day here in the capital city. If you're not listening from here in Lincoln, from across the state, I will report to you. Beautiful day here in Lincoln. So you and I rocked the morning hookup this morning.
We did.
And I went home, mowed my lawn, made myself some lunch, and now I'm back here ready for the afternoon as we have a fun show planned today. We'll be chatting with Brandon Vogel here in about 15 minutes as Brandon joining us for his usual 425 segment on Thursdays. Love chatting with Brandon. We'll have him again here today. We'll talk some NBA as Game 6 of the Finals is tonight. Some NHL as Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals was last night. That's all coming up here in Hour 1. A little bit later in Hour 2, we'll have 8-time College World Series umpire and Lincoln native Jeff Henrichs joining us. So he'll be leading off Hour 2 with us. And then to cap it all off, at the end of Hour 2, we will have Burke's Best Bets. Danny Burke joining us, letting you know all the betting action for Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight and for what's remaining in the Stanley Cup Finals. Might even get Danny's College World Series bandwagon team as well, maybe we'll check in with him. I'm not sure if Danny bets college baseball or not. I've never seen him tweet about it. Maybe we'll get caught up with Danny about that one. So that's what we got coming up today. Get connected with the show here as you can give us a call, 402-466-3776. That's 402-466-ESPN or 800-825-5865. That one's for our listeners listening across the state. Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island, Columbus, we hear you loud and clear. We would love to hear from you today. 800-825-5865 is your number to give us a call there. Or you can tweet at us. It's at Herbal Essences for me, Elijah Herbel, or at Willie on the radio for my man Will Wilson. As we got plenty to get into today. The College World Series starts tomorrow. We'll discuss that here briefly in the show as well. But before we get to all of that, Will, where I want to start us off is a place that, if you've listened to any of these Hail Varsity shows with me, it's a place that's near and dear to my heart, and it's going to be familiar to you. We're going to go to the offensive line. I don't think there's a more crucial position group on the Husker team as a whole this season. Mm-hmm. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That'll be my message until I see any sort of improvement this fall, if there is improvement. So that's really my main sticking point with this football team this fall. And we've learned some things about how Nebraska is shuffling the offensive line under Coach Raiola. Obviously, with injuries during the spring, guys were playing some positions they weren't necessarily familiar with, and guys playing some positions that were unsure if they're going to be playing there in the fall or not. One of those guys that we actually didn't get to see was Turner Corcoran, a guy who finished his year last year at right tackle, and Donovan Raiola seems to be coming a little bit closer and closer to determining where Corcoran's going to play. It does sound like Corcoran's a guy that will be a starter one way or another next season. Really the three that you can bank on. Prohaska, assuming that the recovery from the injury goes as expected and he's a full participant for fall camp. Turner Corcoran's another guy that while hasn't set the world alight from his performances along the offensive line, he is a dependable guy for you, and you're only expecting him to continue making improvements, especially with a new position coach in Donovan Raiola. And the third guy, it sounds like Trent Hickson at center is working his way towards locking up that starting spot. But the interesting news is Turner Corcoran, so far, through summer workouts, seems to be working more at right guard than at right tackle. So it almost felt like you knew who your tackles were going to be heading to the fall with Corcoran with so much experience both at left tackle and right tackle. You had Prohaska, who came in and looked so good at left tackle, and then Hickson apparently impressed this spring at center. But Corcoran now maybe making the move to right guard, which would open up a competition between what would likely be Hunter Anthony and Bryce Benhart at right tackle, and then it will also open up some competition at left guard, probably between Nuruddin Nueli and Omaha North product. Kevin Williams. Don't know why it took me so long to get to that name, but that seems to be the competition at left guard, and we'll see if that move from Corcoran to right guard is a long-term move. Or if that's just something that they're trying out. But it does sound like the early return on investment from Corcoran playing right guard has been good. And I think that's good news for the Husker offensive line as a whole if they're starting to get some of these positions fleshed out this early in the year.
Yeah, and I think I remember last season when the O-line wasn't doing hot, and I think I remember reading something how our O-line coach at the time was trying to move things around, try and find different strengths in these guys, and well, I don't know if we ever found those or if we just thought we did, and then they were the wrong strengths. But I think from what you're saying right there and all these moves we're seeing, that's what I think Raiola is doing. He is just trying to find what these guys can do best, and maybe it's something that it's different than they came here for. And I don't know, I feel like Raiola, he's been different spots in the NFL, and he sees pretty good talent up there, so maybe he sees some talent in these guys that our former O-line coach didn't see. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here, and I like it, man. I like him. I like what we're hearing.
More here on the offensive line. A story out from Steve Sipple on 3 Sports, as we've loved reading Sipple's stuff for years now and had to make the transition, reading him over on 3, but gotta love Sip. And he put out a story just a few days ago on the offensive line and what Coach Raiola has already been doing in the room. We heard from Brock Bando, a guy I know pretty well, and we also heard as well from Trent Hickson, both talking with Steve Sipple about what Coach Railola's coaching style is. And one quote which really stood out to me from Raiola is from Brock Bando. He said, Coach Raiola is big on saying, don't pay attention to the doubters. And when Coach Raiola is doing his coaching, it's not always PG rated. He's right, though. Brock went on to say, we shouldn't always be reading stuff on Twitter. We shouldn't be listening to people on the streets. People in the O-line room, those are the people we care about and want to listen to because they know the techniques and they can help us see what we can't always see. And this is something that really reminds me of what you hear from those sports of guys who really need a lot of confidence. I think guys who are going through a slump in baseball. I think of boxers, MMA fighters, where you hear so much from them. It's tuning out the noise because the doubters, the haters, if you will, they don't know the full story, and the guys who will heaping praise onto you, they don't know the full story as well. You got to keep a level mind and trust the people that are in your corner, just to use a boxing analogy. And it sounds like that's something Raiola is trying to instill in the guys here through spring and summer ball. Just essentially, the doubters are going to be there, and it's about going out and proving the doubters wrong, not about listening to the doubters, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it affects everybody different. Like some guys feed off that some of that motivates some guys. Some guys, it shuts them down and they can't handle it. So I mean, you might as well just kind of block it out. But it's so hard these days. Everybody's on Twitter. Because I mean, if you're an athlete, you are because you can make money doing it, right? So it's kind of hard to stay away from all that these days, man. Thinking back, like before we were even born, 20 years ago, how easy it was. Like all you had to do was either not listen to the radio, not watch TV, or not read the paper. It was those 3 things, or just not talk to the general public. So it's different these days. But no, I like that. He should be saying that. I'm sure. Coaches say that all the time. It's a given. You just don't do it.
And I wonder if this marks a change from what you heard with Greg Austin. 'Cause I feel like there's a coaching style out there of the world is against us, kind of. You use the doubters as your motivation, but it doesn't necessarily sound like that's what Raiola is bringing. We have a quote here from Ben Hart. He says that Raiola tells him no one knows what's going on in practice. Everyone has their own opinion outside, but why listen to that whenever we have our own opinion here on the inside? And that's it's good to hear now, but if you come to fall on the offensive line is still the biggest weak spot on the team, you'll read a quote like that and go, well, maybe the opinion on the outside is right and the opinion on the inside is wrong. Yeah,
I mean, that could be, but it all matters on one opinion, though, and you're right. That's inside the room. But I like hearing what Raiola is doing. We're hearing things every single day of kind of his coaching style and what he's telling the guys. I mean, that's good because he's a new coach. It's not like we know much about him, so it's cool to hear that.
Yeah, one more nugget here from this story, and Steve Sipple is that Raiola has marked a change to the offensive line room, not only on the field, but off the field as well, as he always makes the offensive linemen travel together in a group. That's from meeting rooms to the weight rooms to meeting rooms, from the locker room to practice, what have you. He makes them work as a group, travel as a group, and even wear the same workout gear. And they say that's already been paying dividends within the program, with these offensive linemen getting to know each other better, getting to trust each other better, and it's followed suit with the running back room and other position groups as well, as these guys have started traveling together as well and wearing the same workout attire whenever they are all working out. So it's a little thing, but it's one of those things that I remember from my experience as an offensive lineman. It's a lower level, but in high school, it's all about trusting the guy next to you and the guy next to you trusting you. Yeah, it seems that's just a key on the offensive line. If you can't trust that the guy next to you is going to pick up the right guy, block the right guy, you're never going to have success as an offensive line.
Well, yeah, and unlike the running back group or the wide receiver groups, I mean, yeah, there's trust in each other, but it's not like what you're talking about. It seems like it's most important when it comes to the O-line is forming that brotherhood and really feeding off each other. So that seems important. If you would agree with that. I mean, yeah, that's what you just said, so I guess you will agree with that. It's so hard for me to kind of relate to this stuff. I never played on the O-line. I don't know what it's like, but hearing you talk about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, so offensive line going to be another big question mark through the next few months as we enter this season, but Coach Raiola hoping to make a turnaround, and there's ample experience in that room. 8 guys in that room started at least one game last year along the offensive line, and you do lose your best offensive lineman in Cam Jurgens, but the offseason's about making strides, making development, and for me, I'll wait to see how this offensive line looks come Northwestern week, but for now, there is, what would I call it? Reasonable optimism from my point of view on what this offensive line can do and can improve upon this year, just to make the play of the group as a whole average.
Okay.
I mean, when you're looking at it, this doesn't need to be an offensive line with 5 all-conference guys. It just needs to be an offensive line that isn't the worst in the Big Ten or one of the worst in the Big Ten. They just need to get to a respectable point, and I think that'll be good enough for this team this year and what this team needs to do this year. So,
and of course, staying healthy is a given, but we could definitely turn to that these past few seasons because we've dealt with injuries on the line.
Before we get to Brandon Vogel coming your way in about 7 minutes here, a news drop today as the Big Ten announces Nebraska basketball's 2022 and 2023 season matchups as really some good draws and some bad draws. That's how it's going to go in the Big Ten. But what I think has been a real positive from the schedule release is the teams that Nebraska is slated to play only once. That is Northwestern, Ohio State, Wisconsin, those 3 games being at home. So Northwestern, Ohio State, and Wisconsin will all only play Nebraska once this year, and all of those will be at Pinnacle Bank Arena, while they'll go on the road to face off with Indiana, Michigan, and Rutgers, and all those teams, aside from Northwestern, for the most part, having recent success here in the Big Ten. And I think with a Nebraska basketball season that is do or die for Coach Hoiberg, it's good that some of these juggernauts of the Big Ten are only going to be teams that you're going to be facing once next season.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that's a good draw, but of course I still look at the Big Ten and what it is, and nothing's a good draw for Nebraska basketball.
Well, I mean, compare that to the teams that Nebraska is going to face twice this season. That's the rest of the Big Ten, but Iowa, who I think everyone is expecting to play twice this year, and Iowa was very good last season, but they lose some key talent in key spots. So we'll see what Iowa looks like next year. Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, and Purdue are the teams Nebraska is facing twice next season. So you look at Purdue. Purdue is a little bit scary there, but they do lose Jaden Ivey as well as Caleb Williams.
Yeah, right.
So losing some key talent. I do think they have that giant dude in the middle back.
Yep, he's coming back.
That freaking 7'3" dude or whatever.
Yep, the Canadian.
Yeah, but Penn State, another team that hasn't necessarily been the perennial program of the Big Ten, not by any means. That's a good team to have on there. Minnesota has been good in recent years, but last year was the exception to that. And Maryland isn't anything special either. So I think Nebraska should look at this and how their schedule sets up and see optimism for next season.
I mean, yeah, you could say all that, but again, the Big Ten is the Big Ten, right? There's trap games everywhere. They just come at you like crazy. And there's no easy road win in the Big Ten, especially for how we've looked these past few seasons.
Yeah, but I think it sets up to a point where Nebraska does get NCAA tournament teams at home.
You like that.
When you look at, Ohio State is a team you're going to be facing once, and you're going to play them at home. You're also looking at Wisconsin, another team, that NCAA tournament qualifier. You're going to play them once, and you're going to play them at home. That sets up
true.
well.
I get you. That's a good thing.
The teams you face on the road, Rutgers is a team that made the NCAA tournament last year, but they've lost their two most productive starters in Baker and what was the other guy's name? Geo Baker and Ron Harper.
Yeah, but I think they brought back a few other guys. That guard they have, he's like one of the best defenders in the country. I can't think of his name right now, but yeah, he's coming back. Yeah, it's cool to see this. Hopefully PBA magic helps us because, like you said, we got those teams at home. But, yeah, no draw. No good draw in the Big Ten, if you ask me.
And it is early to be looking ahead to the schedule, but it's what Nebraska is going to be facing this winter as Fred Hoiberg looks to turn things around. We'll get Tony Farmer, Husker basketball legend's thoughts on the Fred Hoiberg program coming up a little bit later. I know, Will, you talked to him this morning, and you had some good stuff, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But coming up next, Brandon Vogel joins the show. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
Calling all Storm Chasers fans. A team you never get to see is making their way to Werner Park June 7th through the 12th, and that's the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. It's the first meeting between the two franchises, and there's plenty going on that week. June 9th is the Chasers Community Celebration for Pride Night, presented by PayPal. June 10th is What If Night, where the Storm Chasers will change their name to the Hogs. A little backstory, that was a previous Omaha team and was a potential name change when the franchise was looking to rebrand. It's a battle of pigs versus hogs. You can't have a name change without new jerseys too. Specialty jerseys will be worn that night, and of course, they'll be autographed and auctioned off. Snag your favorite player June 10th and then run it back on the 11th. It's Salute to Corn Night, presented by the Nebraska Corn Board. It's a celebration of all things corn. Corn on the jerseys, corn in the stands. Trust me, this game will be amazing. See you there.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
A Thursday edition of Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Elijah Herbel and Will Wilson taking you through the show today as got College World Series starting tomorrow. My Avs taking down the Lightning in Game 1, Game 6 of the NBA Finals. So even though there's no Husker sports going down for a few months, still got plenty to talk about here on Hail Varsity Radio, and we're excited to welcome in the managing editor of Hail Varsity Magazine, author of Dream Like a Champion. Find him on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel. It is Brandon Vogel joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, before we go any further, I need to talk some College World Series. We'll get to Husker news here in just a second, but when you look at that 8-team field, let's see if I can get all 8 off the top of my head. You got Stanford, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Auburn. Those are your 8. When you look at that field, are any standing out to you in terms of a team you're thinking about hopping on the bandwagon?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, it's kind of tough for me to deny the run they had to go on to get here. And I mean, playing in the SEC is obviously, I mean, it's kind of the center of the earth in terms of the college baseball world. And so going 37-22 for a program like that, it might just be like, well, maybe they had to figure some things out and did to even get here. And I really like that momentum from them. Notre Dame, based on where I live, certainly broke a lot of hearts of my neighbors in knocking out the top overall seed Tennessee. So I'm kind of interested in that. So that gives me two teams in both sides of the bracket, I guess, to root for. So go Irish and go Rebels.
See, you don't have to sell me on Ole Miss one bit. Ole Miss has been my bandwagon team. I was rooting for them through the Super Regional because it's not often you see a team that is, I believe there were 8 games below 500 at the end of May. They finished their season below 500 in conference play, 14-16, but they finished their year on a pretty good little winning streak. So that was enough for Ole Miss to make it into the College World Series field, and the Rebs got hot at the right time. I think that's one of the special things about college baseball is anything can happen. They say any given Sunday about the NFL, but college baseball is especially true. Any given 9 innings, a team can make a run, a team can get hot, and Ole Miss did that. I think they might be a popular pick among the fans, local fans, I should say, from Omaha this year, taking the Rebs just because of the against all odds nature in which they made the tournament. I mean, this was shaping up to be one of the worst years of the past decade for Ole Miss baseball.
He's only saying that because he's been there.
Fair enough. I have also been to Oxford, Mississippi, and it's a singular place. It's a pretty cool place from a college football perspective. Ole Miss has had some good years, but when game day went to Ole Miss, it was a story, right? Because it's not the place that you just kind of find yourself naturally at. Where like Ohio State, you'd be like, well, yeah, we'll be at Ohio State once a year, kind of no matter what happens. So I like the momentum play, as I mentioned. I'm also very intrigued in if we can get Lane Kiffin, Nebraskan by birth. He was only there for about a year, I think. Get him to Omaha because based on his Twitter, I'm only excited to see what kind of hijinks could ensue from that.
That'd be incredible. And Mississippi State took it home last season, kind of against all odds in the same way, but Ole Miss looking to do the same this year. Brandon, let's shift gears. Let's talk some Husker football. As we've heard some news along the offensive line. I guess it's really glorified rumors coming out of summer workouts, and that is that it's a move that isn't necessarily unexpected, but it sounds like Turner Corcoran, returning from the injury in the spring, has moved down inside and has taken more work and seems to be preparing for the season as right guard. And it kind of leaves the question open of who's going to be the tackles this season. You'd expect Prohaska, depending on health, is going to be the left tackle, and then you look at possibly Bryce Benhart at right tackle. But we seem to be getting a little bit closer to knowing who the 5 are going to be along the Husker offensive line. What do you make of the move of Corcoran from right tackle to right guard, if that does happen to be the case?
Yeah, I could see it. It's about finding the best 5, and I think the key to that then is Prohaska at left tackle, which, the limited amount that we got to see was encouraging, and I think he has a really high ceiling, maybe as high a ceiling as anybody on the offensive line at the moment for me. That said, looking back over that, he played against Oklahoma as kind of a third tight end, a little bit of a unique role in that game. Got to start against Northwestern, played pretty well. Northwestern wasn't very good last year, and then got hurt fairly early in that Michigan game. I mean, it's just such a small sample size with him, and, the coaches are seeing what he's doing in workouts. Wasn't able to practice in the spring, but feel like, they have a more trained eye for this. So if they feel good about going with a player with that amount of experience at left tackle, then you kind of got to trust what they go with there. And if that's the case, I think Corcoran is too talented not to find a spot on that O-line. And we've heard talk from really those first couple of spring press conferences about the potential for him to move inside. He's a big guy. He's bigger than you'd find a lot of typical guards, I think. But you recruited guys like him and Benhart for a reason. Those are both highly touted linemen. They probably need to be part of your picture. And if that takes moving him to guard, I think that's probably a good thing overall for Nebraska.
Brendan, as you look at it now, and we're talking with Brandon Vogel here on Hail Varsity Radio, how many guys do you think you can pencil in as starters next year along the offensive line? Or I guess even in the same vein, how many guys do you think you can put down in Sharpie as being starters for the offensive line? Usually when a new offensive line coach comes in or any position coach comes in, all the spots are up for grabs, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way along the offensive line this year. I mean, there's a few spots up for grabs, but I think we know a few of the guys who are going to be getting some significant playing time.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for Nebraska, and I think you're right. When you get a new position coach, kind of you erase the whiteboard and kind of are willing to totally redo the whole thing. But if we're hearing talk about Corcoran moving inside, I think that tells you what the plan is at left tackle in terms of Nebraska. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Kevin Williams really push at that left guard spot. Seems like Hickson for now might be your leader at center, and then you go Corcoran and Benhart on the right side. But honestly, I don't know if I feel great at this point. Really, definitely going Sharpie, maybe not even pencil, with anyone outside of those tackles. I mean, I think it's most likely that your starting tackles in Ireland are Prohaska and Benhart, but beyond that, I think there's a lot of sorting still to be done in the middle of that offensive line. So I think there's quite a bit that will still be sorted out through these summer workouts and then really in fall camp.
We're talking to Brandon Vogel. Brandon, I was thinking about the defense and talking about the defense now. Enough of your O-line talk, Elijah. Over on the defense, I'm thinking about Shenander, and if he's been here 4 years, and I think that's a lot of time for him to learn about the Big Ten, other teams, other coaches, their strengths, their weaknesses, their tendencies. And when I think about that, I can't help but kind of get comfortable and excited about the defense. I mean, do you kind of agree with me on that? That, over this time, Shenander has had to learn a lot about the Big Ten.
I do agree with you on that. So based on what Nebraska has to replace on defense, I think it's reasonable to expect them to take a slight step back. And how big that step is might go a long way to determining, what happens in this 2022 season. But Shenander and his coaches on that side of the ball, in my opinion, have done enough through 4 years to earn the benefit of the doubt. To think that, okay, well, you don't have a JoJo Doman, you don't have two starting safeties, and you lost a heck of a player in Cam Taylor-Britt, and you're going to be working in some new guys on the defensive front. But they've progressed little by little each of the 4 years that they've had so far. And I do look at that side of the ball, and I think, okay, if we're just measuring up offense versus defense, which one has adjusted to the Big Ten the best? It's unquestionably the defense in my mind. So that gives me a little bit of, more upside for Nebraska defensively than what their returning production might indicate on its own.
Brandon Vogel is talking with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, an interesting tidbit I saw just a few days ago, Mario Buford, he's the younger brother of Marquise Buford, and he was in Lincoln over the weekend checking out Nebraska. Sounds like Nebraska is going to be towards the top of his list. And one of the things that piqued my interest slightly was the fact that he said it was cool to go to Nebraska, see my brother's jersey number, and to see him working in a spot as the new strong safety. And obviously with that spot being up for grabs, that could be a brother saying, man, it's awesome to see a guy in my brother working his way towards some playing time at Nebraska. But do you think that could be an indication of where Nebraska wants to go at strong safety? There was really high praise of Buford through the spring.
Yeah, I think it is. He would be my leader for that spot coming out of the spring. In a lot of ways, it's not that it's different position, but not that dissimilar from kind of Cam Taylor-Britt's progression, which doesn't mean, of course, that it's going to go exactly the same way, but a guy who was, primarily a special teams contributor as a true freshman. And then there was more there. I think you could look through and you could go back multiple years for Nebraska. Those guys that really contribute and kind of make the travel rosters based on the work that they're doing on special teams alone, which if you're just, when you flip on the TV on a Saturday, you miss a lot of that. But the coaches don't, and they see it every day in practice. And then if you're a guy that they can count on where we're going to burn a red shirt for you because you're that valuable on special teams, I think it's a pretty good indicator of what's to come. That's Buford. And then based on what we heard about him during the spring, I think that only backed up a lot of, hey, Nebraska might just have a really good football player here. And given that there's a spot open at that strong safety spot, he might be the top option to fill it.
Brandon Vogel's with us here. Find him on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel. And Brandon, we'll get caught back up with you again on Saturday morning. Schmidt will be back, and we'll talk to you then. Have a good one, all right, bud?
You too, guys. Thanks.
Calling all soccer fans. Union Omaha is back home after an unbelievable showing in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup round of 16. An upset over Minnesota United? That's our team. So join them when they come home May 28th for Educational Outreach Night, presented by Bellevue University. The Owls will face Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC, and after a couple of road matches, will come back on June 18th to face Greenville Triumph SC. It's also Pride Night. We'll see you there.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a Thursday here on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Elijah Herbel and Will Wilson with you here today. I'll be back in tomorrow. Still, we talked about it a little bit yesterday on the show. Still unsure. It's still going to be a surprise. You guys get till 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you'll just be surprised who my co-host is going to be. One of either Connor Clark or Bill Dolman. We are still working through that behind the scenes, so we will just make that a surprise for you tomorrow. We just heard from Brandon Vogel here, as Brandon got into the offensive line, some College World Series, and a whole lot more. That was great. We'll have Brandon's full interview posted up to ESPNLincoln.com here in just a second. Coming up a little bit later, next hour, we have 8-time College World Series umpire Jeff Henrichs with us. He's been all over from professional baseball to college baseball, 30-plus years of experience for Jeff, so we're really excited to talk to him. I know for a fact he has umpired a good number of these College World Series teams this year, and excited to get his thoughts on the teams, the College World Series as a whole, and just pick his brain a little bit on the world of umpiring. So Jeff Henrichs coming up to lead off hour 2, and then we'll also have Burke's Best Bets, Danny Burke, joining us a little bit later in hour 2. That's all coming up. But where I want to take the show for the next few minutes is just across the wide world of sports. We had NHL Stanley Cup Finals Game 1 that left me very happy last night as the Avs get a win. We also have Game 6 of the NBA Finals coming up tonight, as we're just going to hit this a little bit rapid fire style, you and me, Will. But first, where we're going to start it off is late breaking news from FIFA, and that is that Kansas City has been selected as a host city for the 2026 World Cup. It's already been announced that this is going to be a World Cup that is hosted by all of North America. So there's going to be games in Toronto, Mexico City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, am I forgetting Vancouver? I mean, all over the place, all over North America. It's a unique situation with how the World Cup is going to be. This is the next World Cup after the upcoming World Cup, which will be this fall and winter in Qatar. Wow. But the North America has the next World Cup, and only a 3-hour drive away. Yeah, so that's as far as us fans in Lincoln are going to have to go catch a World Cup match. And yeah, even for those who aren't soccer fans, I think World Cup is one of those things that if you get a chance to go check it out, you need to go see it. It's on the world stage. I mean, it's similar to Olympics. Like, I don't care about the bobsled national championships here in the United States. I'm not going to watch it, but if the U.S. team is in the Olympics for bobsled, I'll go watch it. And you know what? I'll just watch the entire bobsled event too while I'm at it, because it's a world stage. The entire world is watching. That is what we're going to have with the World Cup. And you better believe I'm going to head down to Kansas City in 2026 and go catch some games. A once-in-a-lifetime experience in the cards for people here in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's a given. That's a really. I mean, they have a really nice soccer stadium down there, so that's a given. But
I think it's actually going to be played at Arrowhead, though.
Really? That's even better. That would be a lot of fun.
So one of the key stipulations that FIFA has is they need to play their matches on actual turf or actual grass. They can't use the artificial field turf.
Kansas City has real grass.
It's an injury concern. Arrowhead has real grass, and it also fits their seating capacity that they're looking for World Cup matches. So.
Well, I listen. That would be a lot of fun to go to. I'm definitely going to try, but I just hope tickets aren't just overboard and prices. I don't think they would, because there's going to be other spots, other places in North America where games are going to be played. But I just have a feeling tickets are going to be through the roof.
Well, I mean, if this year's any indication, I didn't look that seriously into going to Qatar for this World Cup because it does fall during the middle of Husker football season. But I looked into it. Matches pretty reasonably priced. Now, the price of accommodations and flights to Qatar, not great, and it's halfway across the world. But the matches themselves, soccer matches actually are pretty reasonably priced whenever you compare them to American sports. I mean, I've seen people in England complaining because their tickets for like lower bowl seats at their Premier League matches were, gasp, $50.
Yikes.
And they're complaining about that because they're saying back in my day, it only cost you $20 to get in. Seats are the same price everywhere. It's first come, first serve, like all this stuff. And I mean, comparatively to what you're going to pay for a professional sporting event here in the United States, soccer is pretty reasonably priced. So,
well, I hope you're right, because that would be a lot of fun to go to.
So that is in the cards for 2026. In the cards last night, the Avalanche taking Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, as it's an overtime winner from Andrei Burakovsky. Exciting stuff. If you're not a hockey fan, I feel bad for you. Here's the Avalanche's Connor McGahey on the call for the game winner as the Avs take Game 1.
His pass is blocked. Another bouncing puck. Gobbled up by JT Compher. Down the middle, Compher holds, shoots, it's blocked. Nichushkin with it, Burakovsky, he scores! Andre with a giant goal! And you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because this party is over! Colorado wins Game 1 in overtime!
So the Avs taking Game 1. I'm a happy camper here, as not only was it an exciting game, my Avs ended up getting the win. And no bias here, I do think this could end up being one of those Stanley Cups that goes down in history as one of the better ones. I mean, Tampa Bay, they have their dynasty, looking to continue it with their third straight. As for the Avs, looking to build their own dynasty. And if last night was any indication, these teams very, very evenly matched. And now with ESPN and ABC getting the rights back, it's going to be open up to a wider audience as well, the Stanley Cup this year. So if you aren't a hockey fan, if you aren't invested, check out Game 2 on Saturday, because this thing has everything that you want. I mean, hockey, I understand the people who don't like hockey, but the Avs play a new style of hockey where hockey is going in the future. That's speed, that is excitement, that is just boatloads of skill. I mean, the Avs play in a way that I think will be very beneficial to fans in 2022.
Yeah, I'm still going Tampa in 6. Elijah and I have a wager on the line in this series. I have Tampa, and the winner takes the loser takes the winner out to a night at the Salt Dogs game. Beer, pizza, hot dogs. So come on, Tampa.
For context, Will isn't even a Tampa Bay fan. He just likes to see me sad.
Actually, I have a connection down in Tampa. My family lives down there, and my cousin goes to school with one of the owners of the Lightning. Oh. So I do have a little connection down there for you. But if I do celebrate a team, it's the Wild. I'm not even a hockey fan. You're baiting me. Stop. I don't like hockey.
Will's becoming a hockey guy here.
I hate it. I just
watch the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, playoff hockey is electric. Stanley Cup Final hockey is takes that to a new level.
I get that. And I understand that. Yeah, it does.
And it's just shaping up like it's going to be just an incredible Stanley Cup Final. So that's great. We also have Game 6 coming up between the Celtics and the Warriors tonight. Tip-off is going to be at 8 o'clock. The Celtics playing at home, looking to extend the series as they are 4-point favorites. Well, we might have to get a little wager on this one coming up a little bit later in the show here and see what you think. If the Warriors end it tonight, if Game 6 Clay comes out to play, that rhymes, and I love that. And in Game 6, Clay has been legendary in his entire career. This hasn't been a series to remember from Clay by any means, but anything can happen, and one game can swing a complete narrative over how well someone played in a series. And if there's any time that Clay usually turns it on, it is Game 6 in those closeout games. So the Warriors looking to take home the NBA Finals tonight. The Celtics looking to extend the series, and I struggle to find a lean here. I don't even know which way to go.
I got one for you. I saw on Twitter that the Warriors have already rented out a party space at a nearby casino for celebration afterwards if they win.
Was that maybe they're counting their chickens before they're hatched?
Exactly.
Did they look too far ahead? I mean, that could be one of. They're confident they're going to get it done in Boston. They've figured out how to beat the Celtics. But the other way you look at it is, well, they're counting their chickens before they're hatched, and they're going to be out of this one before it even starts because they're already planning to celebrate. So we'll talk a little bit more about Game 6 coming up after the break here at Hail Varsity Radio.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a fast-moving hour one here on Hail Varsity Radio. If you're the 9 to 5 type, look at that. The last hour of your workday just flying on by. No thanks to myself and Will Wilson, as we can't wait for the weekend. A fun weekend of College World Series action coming up. I'm going to try to make it up to Omaha here on Saturday. Probably won't make it into a game with... I'm going to hit on this here for a second. The fact that they've gone away from general admission in the outfield has meant that ticket prices are soaring this College World Series. So still trying to figure out how I'm going to find a way to dirty my way into a College World Series game this year. But I'll at least go up to Omaha and check out the scene on Saturday night and see how what's the word I'm looking for?
Are you having a stroke or something? What are you trying to sound here? What, the opening ceremony? What do you...
No, the
opening pitch?
Festivities. That was the word I was looking for.
Oh, Fan Fest.
The Fan Fest. Yeah, the festivities, all that. Go check out all the great businesses down in downtown Omaha. So looking forward to the College World Series. Before we get out of here this hour, a quick note on the Celtics and Warriors Game 6 tonight. Scott Foster, widely known as a series extender, not going to be working Game 6 tonight, and neither is Tony Brothers, a guy who some Celtics fans would say has a bias against the Celtics based on how he calls games featuring Boston. Neither of those guys going to be working the game tonight. We'll ask Danny Burke coming up here in hour 2 if that affects how he is going to play this Warriors and Celtics game tonight. So that is something to watch. Before we get out here, a quick reminder about seatbelts. Remember that nearly 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska are not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash. Buckle up. It's a message brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office. If you're driving down the highway right now and you don't have your seatbelt on, just do me a favor personally and flip that seatbelt on. Want to keep you safe as you listen to Hail Varsity Radio. Also, one more thing to let you know about, that's that we got a giveaway coming up next week here on ESPN Lincoln. This is for Beatdown at the Box, referring to the Ice Box down on the State Fairgrounds. It's coming up Saturday, July 30th. It's the first ever professional kickboxing event in Nebraska. Also a pro boxing fight as well. That's going to be on the card that night. Again, that's Saturday, July 30th. And all next week, we are going to be giving away 4 packs of tickets to the Beatdown at the Box. So 20 total tickets we'll be giving away for each day. Your chance to win will be next week as a great experience down at the Ice Box. I personally love professional fighting, specifically UFC, but I also love boxing and all that. So I don't think I'm qualified to win this, considering I do work here, so maybe I'll have to actually buy myself a pair of tickets. But that sounds like a great event, and we'll have your chance to get some tickets next week. Well, before we get out of here this hour, actually, I was going to ask you what your College World Series bandwagon team. Actually, go for it.
It's funny because we were talking a lot about Ole Miss. Last week I was struggling to find a team. None of them appealed to me. A lot of them, as a Nebraska fan, I can't root for. So I actually picked Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is a good one. They're my adopted quote-unquote SEC team, just with I like Kiffin. I think Kiffin's a character, and he makes their football team fun. A lot of good memories just of Ole Miss teams in the past, from Chad, a.k.a. Swag Kelly, Marshall Henderson, the basketball player.
Money.
Gotten a chance to go see a couple Ole Miss baseball games, so Ole Miss is my pick as well. We'll get caught up, or I guess we'll talk with College World Series umpire Jeff Henrichs coming up after the break.
Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price. That means that you can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Rolling into hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. It's Elijah Herbel alongside Will Wilson as we get you ready for a full weekend of College World Series action, really a full week of College World Series action. We're excited here to chat with, Jeff, if I get any of these accolades wrong, you just let me know, because I sent it over to our trusty ESPN Lincoln Sports and Information Department, and that's also known as Google. So I did that, and if I get any of these accolades and accomplishments wrong, you let me know, but I think I got it down right. You are a Nebraska Baseball Hall of Famer, as well as 30-plus years of experience umpiring both across professional baseball and college baseball, even making a stint in the major leagues. 8 College World Series appearances for you as an umpire, and then also, to my knowledge, the only modern-era umpire to work 3 consecutive College World Series. Is that correct?
Well, that Google's pretty close. Yeah, that's about right, Elijah. Thanks, I appreciate it. This was my 38th year of umpiring, and you still go out there and enjoy it, and it would be nice to be back in Omaha, but 3 years in a row was a lot of fun, but I'm really happy for the 8 guys that'll be umpiring there, and of course the 8 teams. It's going to be a heck of a College World Series, because when we started the season, we knew there wasn't really a standout team, and I think a couple of the teams like Texas and Tennessee started out on fire, and same thing with Mississippi. I think Mississippi was the number 1 team to start the year, and then they kind of faltered and came on at the end. So I think Omaha is going to be crazy, and it's going to be a lot of good fun baseball.
Jeff, should be noted also your man to buy a house, as you can get connected with him, Keller Williams of Lincoln, and ask for Jeff. Jeff's your man there. And Jeff, just to dive into the College World Series a little bit here, you worked the last 3 College World Series, if I have my stats here, and you have this year off. So with the weather coming into Nebraska this weekend, I'm seeing 100-plus degrees Saturday, 100-plus degrees Sunday, and just real scorchers all next week. Are you glad you got this year off? Just because, it was going to be hotter than hell out there. If I can say that. Well, I can say that, right? Yeah, I can say that. It's hotter than hell out there next week.
Yeah, well, you know what? You work hard to try to get back there. Don't get me wrong, but let me tell you, and at that ballpark with it enclosed there at home plate, you don't get a lot of wind working behind the plate, so it does get very warm. When you get older, you sit in the car and it's about 130 degrees. Throw on a chest protector, as you know, Elijah. Throw on your mask and your shin guards, and then go out there for 9 innings and try to do it. It's tough, and I just hope that the guys stay hydrated. The medical staff up there in Omaha does a great job for the umpires, so hopefully nobody gets hit by the heat, and they can get through it.
And we focus so much on these teams making it to the pinnacle of college baseball, making it to Omaha, and the pressure that kind of revolves around that. But I want to pose the question to you, being a guy who's been there 8 times, do umpires feel that same pressure to perform whenever they step on the field? And obviously it's a physical grind, but what kind of mental toll does it take on an umpire knowing the world is watching and I really can't mess up here?
Well, it's changed a lot over the years. I don't know, I think it was 2018 when I went to the World Series. One of the guys in the Big 12 tournament said, "Hey, you have a $50,000 plate job today?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" Well, Baylor was playing TCU, and Jim Schlossnagle, I think, had like a $50,000 bonus to make it to postseason, and they needed to win the Big 12 tournament. And if they didn't win, then he didn't get that bonus. So the money with the coaches has really changed, and I think you can see, you're an umpire, you're trying to work your way up, and you see what's going on TV. I think that has had a big influence on it, but there's always pressure. There's a line, I think that if you work with me, I always say, hey, it's okay to have butterflies. Just make sure they fly in formation when you go out there. And then you just, you work on just a couple things. Make sure you slow your timing down, see the pitch, see the play, make sure the whole play happens. And, just being there a lot kind of helps, calm the nerves and stuff like that. But, if you're not excited to go out and work a College World Series and work on ESPN in front of 26,000, then there's probably something a little bit wrong with you.
Talking with College World Series umpire Jeff Henrichs here on Hail Varsity Radio. Jeff, a Lincoln native, and Lincoln is proud of Jeff, and we're happy to talk with him here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jeff, you mentioned kind of the changing nature of college baseball with the money that's being involved now for these coaches. And I've also seen in recent years there's been a more of an emphasis on letting emotion show through in the game of baseball. And we saw that in a couple of regionals here in the past couple weeks where you had players hitting home runs and umpires heading up the line, making sure that these guys weren't going to show their emotions in a way that was going to lead to problems within the game. And I just want to ask you about how that has changed within the past couple of years in college baseball, with people showing more emotion, more bat flips, pitchers yelling at batters when they're on the mound. Have you seen the change while you've been out there on the field, and just kind of what are the effects of that and how it affects your job, I guess?
Yeah, boy, have we. I'm old school. I'm always worried when something like that happens that the next pitch is going to dot somebody. And, the baseball gods have a funny way of working when those kind of things happen. I think you remember a couple of years ago when Louisville was beating Nashville, and the kid from Louisville was sticking it to him pretty good for 8 innings and kind of had some choice words towards the dugout. And we had to stop a fight in between I believe it was the bottom of the 8th going to the top of the 9th. I think it was 2019. And, he comes out for the 9th inning and base hit, air, little chink hit, and all of a sudden a ball in the gap, and, Vanderbilt walks him off. So, to answer your question, I'm okay for emotion until, you want to yell and scream when you strike somebody out. I think it's okay as long as you're not looking at the dugout, you're not staring down the batter. But then again, if you're going to do that, if somebody hits a home run off you, then you better be able to take it. If you're going to dish it out, you better be able to take it. So, there's what people don't realize on the field is somebody hits a home run and they're all out there by the dirt. What's said from the other 25 guys that are in that kind of group? And, even being on the field working the games you work, there's some things that are being said that, kind of it's throwing gas on a fire. So I'm okay with emotion. Just keep it to yourself. Try not to show the other team up too much. And if you do, and the other team, performs, then they get their say also.
We're talking to Jeff Henrichs, a longtime umpire here in Nebraska, and I wanted to ask you, there was that video that went viral from the MLB the other night of Mike Trout's bat breaking and then, getting stuck inside of the umpire's mask, and I think that just goes to show how dangerous, it could be. Would you agree, it is dangerous than people think?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I got dotted 5 times this year on a foul tip right to the mask, and I'm not getting any younger. It's, you guys just talking about that. It's almost like if you sprain your ankle and then they show the NBA where somebody steps on somebody's foot and you see the ankle sprain and you don't ever want to see that. That's a tough one. Wood bats or bats that are let go and come back and hit you in the head or stuff like that. It's scary. It's part of the job. But, the good thing about that is I think after you saw that happen, you saw both Mike Trout and the catcher just stop. Mike Trout didn't even run. He was worried about the umpire. So, there is a good working relationship. There's egos. We're all trying to do the same thing. Believe it or not, everybody, we want to go out there and not be seen and walk off the field in 9 innings and be done and know that we did a good job and gave everybody a fair shake. And, those are just kind of some of the ugly sides of baseball, some things that can happen to umpires.
Now, just back to the College World Series here. I mean, you mentioned the mutual respect between players and umpires and coaches and umpires, and does that translate to the College World Series at a time where, I mean, these coaches are under pressure to win, the players want to win, this could be the highlight of their baseball careers. Just what does that dynamic between player and umpire or coach and umpire look like between, say, a regular season game and the College World Series? Is it any different?
Yeah, a little bit. At the College World Series, you're mic'd, so they kind of got to be careful what they say, which is a good thing, Believe it or not, the super regionals are the hardest to work. You have the home team fans there. The home team's playing every game in a super regional. You call a pitch on the outside corner that's right on the outside corner. The home fans are going nuts because they think it's outside. Super regionals are the hardest to work. You kind of got to, make your hay there at Super Regionals to get invited back to the College World Series. The College World Series, behind the plate, is pretty much just Omaha or people that have bought tickets to go to the College World Series. And the home team fans are behind the dugouts. So, I'm not going to say it's easier to work the College World Series, but I will say this, Super Regionals are definitely the toughest to work in postseason.
We're talking to Jeff Henrichs, longtime umpire here in Nebraska. And one thing I wanted to touch on with you is it's kind of a local problem. There's no question that there is an umpire shortage, especially here in Nebraska. And, I don't know what is contributing to that. It could be stories of, like Elijah and I talked about earlier, a 72-year-old umpire in some other state getting clocked in the face. It's just, you hear stories about that. But, why do you think there's a shortage? And what do you have to say to somebody who's maybe thinking about starting to umpire?
That's a great question. Well, I'm glad you brought it up. I got a call. My daughter-in-law works in the university in the athletic department, and her boss has a son that was 11 years old and was playing, and they didn't have spots for 60 games over the weekend. And it's definitely I've got grandkids, and I want to be able to see them grow up. I had a son that played travel baseball, and the way this is going to be hard to say, but the way people treat umpires. Hey, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones out there. There's some ones that are, trying to collect money. There's also guys that are out there for the love of the game and the love for your children. And, I always told my son, if you got called out on a strike three that something was a little outside or something's a little low, there's not a coach in the stands at 11 years old that is going to sign you to a D1 scholarship. You still got to go play high school baseball. I do think the way people treat other people, especially in athletics and officials in general, there's a huge crisis all over basketball, baseball. I saw, one of the greatest officials in Nebraska, John Higgins, was filling in with his son in a 15U AAU game, and they had to kick the coach and the son out. And believe it or not, the son and the coach were father-son out of a game and barred them for the rest of the AAU tournament. So, hey, if we make mistakes or we miss a play or whatever, it's going to happen. But believe it or not, when you go to replay, it's great when you have these conferences that aren't Power 5 that don't have replay, how quick they go to replay. And, over the course of the year, I think I went to replay 28 or 29 times this year in the Big 12. We don't have it in the Back 12 that I worked at, and I didn't have anything reversed. So we get a lot more right than we miss. And I understand, you want your kids to win and stuff like that. I always told my son, if we're going to keep score, play to win. But if you really want officials out there to work with your kids and work their games, treat them with some respect. If it's 100 degrees and you see some guy struggling, get him some Powerade, get him some water, get him a cool towel. It's okay. If you want your kids to be able to play, you better be able to treat the officials with respect on the field, or it's not going to happen.
A cool chance here to sit down and talk with longtime umpire Jeff Henrichs. And Jeff, you've worked games all over the country, even this year. And I think you told me a couple days ago you had the opportunity to work a couple of the teams that are in this year's College World Series field. Can you tell me a little bit about those teams and maybe tell me if you have a pick for who might win it all this season?
I kind of got to be careful there. I'll say this on the pick. I'll say that I think the hottest team in the country right now is Oklahoma. They're playing really well. I had the Texas-Oklahoma series down in Globe Life Field in Arlington at the Rangers ballpark, and Oklahoma should have won it other than they had a 7-run lead on Sunday and had kind of a drop fly ball in the outfield. Texas is hot. You know, Texas is really good. And Stanford, Brock Jones, their first baseman is a heck of center fielder leads off, is a heck of a player. They're loaded. What I can tell you is going into Omaha, you know, it's the teams that can play defense and pitch. It's a big ballpark. It's going to be warm, so the ball may jump a little bit more. But, you know, those three teams, watch out for Arkansas. Ole Miss was, you know, one of the top teams in the country, didn't play too well until the end, and then all of a sudden caught fire. I thought, you know, I had Oregon State and Stanford, two of the top teams that I saw all year. Auburn beat them this last weekend, so they've got to be legit. It is going to be wide open. I mean, you look at the top bracket, you got Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, and is it Notre Dame, the fourth team? Is that right?
I believe so.
I mean, can you imagine a winner's bracket game between Oklahoma and Texas again, or Texas and Texas A&M, or a loser's bracket game? You know, it's going to be some really good baseball. It's going to be fun to watch.
Last thought here, Jeff, and Jeff, make sure you find him over if you need a house in the Lincoln area. Keller Williams, Lincoln is where you check his work out, and we're appreciative of your time here today, Jeff. And with the last 60 seconds or so here, I want you to think back to all the games you've worked at the College World Series. Do you have a memory that stands out, whether it be a favorite or just something that you'll always remember from your time working the College World Series?
Well, I was behind the plate with Arkansas and Oregon State when Arkansas dropped the ball. You know, you see that pop fly, and you kind of start walking towards the dugout, or towards the tunnel to get off the field, and they dropped it. And then the next pitch, the shortstop for Oregon State base hit, and then Kevin Larnach, I believe his name, and comes up the next pitch and then hits a 2-run bomb, and they go ahead. It was really nice. I was behind the plate for the last game Florida State ever won with Mike Martin. I was behind the plate on the called strike 3 when Virginia beat Vanderbilt in 2015, and then I was behind the plate when Arizona beat South Carolina. And what was really cool is that the South Carolina coach, Ray Tanner, as we were walking out after they got beat, he'd already done his ESPN segment and was just with the local reporters. And as I was walking by, I'd had him quite a bit in the postseason. He stopped all the reporters, made them shut off their phones and their recorders and everything like that, and come over and shook my hand after he just got beat. And he says, I just want to tell you what, I really enjoy when you're behind the plate. I know we get a fair shake, and you did a hell of a job tonight. So, those are some good memories of the College World Series. There's nothing like, when you're new, there's 4 new guys this year. And I always tell them that first, when you run out on the bases and your feet aren't going to hit the ground, just stand out in the outfield and just do a 360 and, know you've made it to the pinnacle of baseball. They can never take the word World Series away from you.
That's pretty cool. Longtime umpire Jeff Henrichs, 30-plus years of experience, 8 College World Series, and your man for homes here in the Lincoln area. Keller Williams is where you check out his work with Realty in Town. Jeff, appreciate the time today, and you enjoyed this College World Series, all right?
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@hailvarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a Thursday here on Hail Varsity Radio. Just had a fun chat with longtime umpire Jeff Henrichs, as we got a lot of insight from him. That was a lot of fun, and gets me just excited for the College World Series. First game coming up on Saturday afternoon. We'll have coverage of Monday's slate of games here on ESPN Lincoln. That's for our local listeners. I know that our affiliates out in Kearney, Hastings, and Grand Island also going to be having College World Series games on Monday, so no show for us on Monday, as that's the day Schmidt going to be returning from Denver. We'll have College World Series action. That's going to be great before we get our week started next Tuesday, so we're going to see, maybe we'll have to have an amended Mondays with Charlie. We'll call it Mondays with Charlie on a Tuesday, maybe next week. So that was a lot of fun sitting down with Jeff. As you just heard in the intro, open phone lines for you here the next 10 minutes or so, as you can give us a call, 402-466-3776, 402-466-ESPN, or 800-825-5865. And Will, we didn't get in this in the interview, but you and Jeff, both proud alumni of Lincoln East High School.
That's right. Yeah, go Spartans. And his sister, I was my athletic director during my time there.
Yeah, and I believe the Lincoln East baseball field named after the Henrichs family now. So really
cool.
Just a staple of the Nebraska athletic scene. As we told you, Jeff inducted into the Nebraska Baseball Hall of Fame just a couple years ago. We really thank him for his time. And seriously, if you're looking for a home in Lincoln, reach out to Jeff Keller-Williams of Lincoln. Where I want to go here now with this next segment is something that you did a great job getting this morning, Will. And you sat down with both Henry T. Buchanan and Tony Farmer, both former members of the Husker basketball team. Both guys that were under those legendary Danny Nee teams. And this is something we'll get into with Dolman at some point tomorrow, kind of the Danny Nee years and whether or not they've been forgotten. But set this up for the people at home. Tony making some interesting comments essentially about how the Husker basketball program is run now.
Yeah, well, every Thursday we have Henry T. Buchanan on our show, The Morning Hookup, and he's been bringing on these great guests. He's brought on some amazing people, and he brought on Tony Farmer this morning. And, of course, Tony, his legacy at Nebraska everybody knows about, and he went on to play just a ton of basketball and still is playing basketball professionally. So, we had him on. And Henry, he's always talked about how he would love to go in, and he has before, go in and talk to the team and just kind of talk to the guys, and he's done that before. And Tony kind of fed off that, and he talked about how important he thinks it is for the team to talk to former legends of the team, and here's what he had to say.
Well, if you were a piece, if you were a piece of history and you're a piece of the Nebraska Cornhusker alumnus basketball program, if you were me or T. Buchanan or Rich King or these guys, what would you do? What would you say? And if you look at it, Piakowski is in Omaha. Keith Moody is in Omaha. Bruce Chubbuck is around. Bo Reed is in Lincoln. Eric Strickland, Terrence Badgett are in Omaha. Why? T comes all the time. Why are those guys' phones not ringing? I'm not saying it has to be my phone ringing, but why aren't their phones ringing where they're in striking distance? I don't care if gas is $200 a gallon. Respect the game, respect the level, because all those guys are credible guys who brought something to the program. And if you look at our history, if you look at Coach Nee's history, how come T. Buchanan, Tony Farmer, all these guys didn't have drinking and driving issues, getting arrested, domestic violence? And I say that because we're clear examples of a college athlete. And the thing is people look at my story and the situation that happened with Ray Perry, things like that. And I tell people, unless you know the internal, you can pass judgment, because I didn't receive jack crap from him from a point from the illegalities. He was a booster from Georgia, took an interest in me as a young man out of California, and that's what that was. But at the end of the day, when I look at the program and what I've done on the court and what I've done in that classroom, I worked my butt off. And I can honestly say there's very few players that come through that program that have done what T, myself, our teams collectively have done. How come when the Coach Nee era stopped, the Nebraska basketball era stopped?
And that's interesting thoughts there from Tony. And it's an era I don't remember. I wasn't alive for the Danny Nee era, but I've heard stories from both Schmidt and Dolman and a lot of longtime people, Markowski, about the Nee years. And a lot of people look back upon those years fondly. And I think it's almost similar to what the Husker football team had. I mean, you look back at all these legends of the 90s, and now they're coming back and giving their assistance to the Husker football program in whatever way they can, whether it be mentoring guys off the field or assisting in the weight room, volunteer assistant coaches, what have you. I mean, we've seen it with Jason Peter, just to name one, of these guys coming back and helping out with the program. And it does make you wonder, why hasn't Fred Hoiberg used some of that same strategy, inviting back some of these former Huskers? I mean, really the only former Husker I can think ever being honored during the Fred Hoiberg era is whenever they brought back Tyronn Lue and retired the jersey.
Yeah, and that wasn't even during...
Was that Miles' era?
Yeah, I think that was during Miles. We played Michigan State and lost that night. Yeah, you know, when I hear that, I feel that emotion. I mean, I feel like everybody can. You feel that emotion in his voice when he's talking about that. He really wants the program to do good, and I can only sense that he's just kind of frustrated how, you know, not some of these guys aren't getting calls, and maybe they are, and you know, we're not aware. I know Henry has gone to practice before and talked with some guys, but you know, it sounds like Tony wants more of that. And you know, you think about the guys on the roster right now; they don't know. Do you really think they know that who the best successful teams have been in Nebraska history? No way, because it's been so long. And I think Tony's thinking, you know, if we talk to them, they would kind of get a good idea, and you know, I think that would help. So I don't know. That was a great piece of audio, and I appreciate Tony and Henry for coming on. That whole interview is up at espnlincoln.com if you want to listen to it.
Yeah, and make sure if you're a listener from across the state, you can stay up to date with the Morning Hookup weekdays 9 to 11 here on ESPN Lincoln. You can check out espnlincoln.com to stay updated. Or if you're a local listener, make sure to check out the Morning Hookup as Will Wilson and the Chicken King Bill Hooks going at it every single morning, again, 9 to 11 here on ESPN Lincoln. And that was good stuff this morning from Tony. And I mean, with how much we have discussed this being a make-or-break year for Scott Frost, I think it's been well understood that this is also going to be a make-or-break year for Fred Hoiberg. And with just so much roster turnover, on one hand, there is, I mean, it's the same story as a football team almost, where on one hand there's hope, but that same amount of turnover also leads you to worry, because you look at this and you go, is there going to be team chemistry, cohesion between these guys? I mean, that's been the story of Husker basketball over the past couple of years, is you got a couple talented guys on the team, but either there's guys within the lineup that don't quite fit the system of basketball they're looking to play, or guys aren't fully bought in. There isn't chemistry between guys within the team. There's just been issues with that sort of problem where I don't necessarily think the issue with Husker basketball has been talent over the past couple of years. Have they been out-talented at times? Yes, but I don't think, I mean, it's a similar story to football. I don't think the talent on the floor has been as bad as the record would necessarily indicate. It hasn't been great.
No.
It's still probably sub 500, but when you look at how many total Big Ten wins they have last year, 3?
Yeah, it's I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. But you talk about how guys are gelling and how that has to happen. That's true. But, you know, let's not forget, too, Hoiberg came back, right? There's a part of me that thinks Hoiberg would not have wanted to come back, and he wouldn't be here if he didn't want to be here. But he does. He stuck around. He hired a new coach. And he got some new personnel in here. To me, you know, he came back from the NBA. Maybe, you know, in the college game is different from the NBA. We all know that. I think he's learning, and I'm confident that here in year 4, is it year 4? I think we're in year 4. That he's learned a lot, and you know, I think he's still committed to getting this thing done, which I like.
Now, see, you're a guy, Will, that's always even been a bigger Nebraska basketball follower and supporter, I guess, if you want to put it that way, than myself. You were always a guy I would see on TV at the Husker basketball games. Guy that always had their season tickets. You're always there, and I want to ask you, just in terms of talent, how far behind, say, the Miles era do you think that this Hoiberg era has been to date? Do you think it's been a talent issue, or do you think it has been an issue with cohesion and the system just not working within the Big Ten?
I think it's all of that. Obviously, the talent we have, like we all know, talent's good. You see the numbers next to him. You see what the stats he put up at the school before. Like, these kids can play. It's time to get guys on campus and having them stay here and for 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's what helps, and we just haven't seen that. It's a lot of turnover. But you know, it's early on. Schedule coming out today. That's cool. Decent draw, you think? But yeah, no, I think Hoiberg's settling down, and I'm excited for this next year.
Well, it's Will Wilson joining me, Elijah Herbel, here on Hail Varsity Radio, as a fun show we've had for you today. Brandon Vogel joining us back in Hour 1. We heard from longtime umpire Jeff Henrichs at the beginning of this hour as well. If you missed either of those interviews, you can check them out, espnlincoln.com. And you can also check out the full podcast version of this show. It'll be up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you like to get podcasts, really. YouTube as well. You can check out Hail Varsity Radio on the Hail Varsity YouTube page, and make sure to drop a comment, leave a review, to give us your thoughts, good, bad, or ugly. Schmitty likes to say that, and I'll echo what he says. We can't get better for you. We do this show for you, and we can't get better unless you give us your feedback. So that would be a great way for us to make this show as ideal as we can for our listeners. So make sure to give us your thoughts. We got Danny Burke coming your way here after the break, as Danny is going to give his thoughts on the Stanley Cup Game 1, what it means for the rest of the series. We'll have Game 6 thoughts between the Celtics and the Warriors, as well as the Celtics are 4-point favorites tonight. And we'll figure out who Danny's going to be bandwagoning for the College World Series. That's all coming up after the break. It's Burke's Best Bets, as he's going to get you all set for a big weekend of betting. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back in, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Elijah Herbel and Will Wilson taking you through this Thursday, and it's time to get some betting locks for the weekend. It's Burke's Best Bets. Danny Burke joining us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Danny, how's everything hanging out in Chicago? Your Cubs not looking great this season, and we also have some discontent within the White Sox dugout. Seen that within the past week or so here. I know you're not a big White Sox guy, but not a great year for baseball in Chicago.
No, it's been the struggle bus for sure out here in the Windy City. The Cubs, you kind of expected it, to be honest. So we Cubs fans have already sort of embraced that failure that was going to be inevitably happening this season. And it's good in the side of, hey, you can fade this team and make some money off of it in the meantime. As for the Sox, yeah, they've just been an utter disappointment. Solid series. That was a much-needed sweep at Detroit. But, look, it's going to get tougher because I think they got the Blue Jays, not this series. I think they're in Houston this upcoming series and Toronto at home the next. I still think the White Sox will find a way to win the division. Will they win the World Series? Hell no. They just do not have what it takes. But I still think if you wait a little bit, because their schedule is going to be one of the easiest in the latter half of this season, then you can jump back in on the White Sox and they'll find a way to compete for the top. So they'll get there at some point. It ain't going to be pretty.
Danny, I'll just let you know, in my MLB The Show game, I did a March to October with the White Sox, and at the All-Star break, they were sub 500. They made a huge run at the end of the season, so, I mean, anything can happen.
Hey, that's all you need to know. If it happened there, it's probably going to happen in real life.
Danny, I did see that you are now back above 500 with your MLB picks for the season, so not necessarily a super strong start for you, but are you getting into the feel for this season now?
Yeah, man, it was a real just struggle for me to begin this year. And I don't know why. It's just kind of how betting goes sometimes. Baseball is typically one of my top two sports when it comes to handicapping. And since it's such a long season, it's honestly nice because it'll eventually kind of get back to where we need it to be. I don't have any doubt that we're going to get to where we want and have a successful winning percentage. But yeah, I just went on this horrid streak. I think it was like a 7 or 10 game losing streak, whatever it was. But we've clawed our way back, and we've kind of gotten to that point of the season to where I definitely feel a lot more comfortable because, well, you're getting that larger sample size. You're getting a better understanding of how these pitchers are going to fare with their home and road splits against lefties, against righties, and same goes for the offense. So you're really getting a great read on these guys as of this point. There's definitely going to be another time in the season where we go on a lull, though, because because it's so long, you just get, a lot of the times some of these favorites, hey, maybe they'll go on a bad losing streak. Look at the Brewers, for example. You look at a bad team that can just keep winning these underdog games, and you're like, are they good? I don't get it. So it's definitely a tough task to handicap baseball throughout a long season, but in the end, we've always come out on top, so I'm expecting the same this year.
Danny, before we get to some NBA, let's talk some NHL. The Avs took Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals last night. An exciting game. It took overtime to determine a winner. The Avs get it done at home, and that sets up a pretty fun matchup for Saturday. What did last night tell you in terms of what you're looking at betting this series?
Look, I know you're an Avalanche fan, Elijah, but I'm not going to lie. I mean, let me start with how I was going into it. I thought, as did many people, it seems, everyone I've talked to or listened to, not that they think Tampa Bay is certain to win, per se. I think more people think the Avalanche have a slight advantage to find a way. But based on where these odds were, there was no value with Colorado, right? It lied with this Tampa Bay team that has been overlooked in 2 out of the 3 series thus far. They're back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, looking to make it a trifecta. And I was in agreement. I would have only taken the plus money with them in the series and with them in Game 1. With that being said, I did neither because I was going to wait for a better opportunity. What I ended up doing was betting the series over 5.5 games at minus 150. Look, these are 2 of the best teams in hockey, and you and I were kind of talking off air, but this seems like it's going to be one of the better Stanley Cup finals, which we haven't really seen in a couple of seasons. So I think these truly are the best teams. You give the goaltending advantage to Vasilevsky, in my opinion. He's had some rough Game 1s, and I think last night was a little fluky. He didn't get any help from his defense. The turnovers were abysmal by Tampa Bay. He had that one that kind of just barely skated by him. And overall, too, aside from that, I mean, look, what I'm trying to say is that the fact that Tampa Bay was able to claw back down a couple goals in that game with those opportunities to still win it at the end, I think that they're going to make this a hell of a series. Is Colorado better offensively? Sure. Are they faster? Yeah. Is it going to take a lot for Tampa Bay to keep up? You betcha. But look, they have that championship pedigree, the better goalie in my opinion, and you probably give them the head coaching advantage with a slight nod, but you just can't be careless. You got to be disciplined. That 2-man advantage, seldom does that happen, and that was another goal. So there was just so many things that went against Tampa Bay, yet they still found themselves on the road in that tough environment in overtime with a chance to win it. So I'm not too concerned if you like Tampa. I'm going to wait to see what happens Game 2, and even if they lose that one, I'd maybe entertain live betting them on the series price. But I did make my bet for over 5.5 games, and you can still get it at about the same price, only a little bit better. So I think this one's going 6 or 7, and I wouldn't be shocked with whichever team wins, but the value is definitely with Tampa Bay.
Danny, let's move to NBA as it's Game 6 of the finals tonight. 8 o'clock tip-off between the Warriors and the Celtics. I'm seeing the Celtics here as a 4-point home favorite. But one thing to look at here is that Scott Foster, I mean, he's the series extender. He's not going to be officiating tonight. Neither is Tony Brothers, who seems to have some sort of bias against the Celtics this series. So does that make you think that maybe it's Golden State's time to close this one out in Game 6 on the road?
I hope it is. I'm invested in Golden State for the series. I'm invested with Steph Curry for Finals MVP. But if I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint, Elijah, if I weren't invested in this going into this mark in the series, I would probably back Boston in this game. So the way I'm doing it instead of doing that because I want to root for Golden State, and I kind of talked about this after Game 1, and it's actually happened every single game, and my thought process was in terms of the total, if you think Boston's going to win whatever given game, your chances of the total going over, I think, increase because Boston's going to have to outscore Golden State to do that, and Golden State should have the better offense. So if Boston's winning, you got to figure there's more points. Conversely, if Golden State's winning, well, I mean, yeah, they're going to hit their shots, but at the same time, Boston's defense is going to show up every game, right? That's not something that kind of takes the night off. Their defense is going to be there, and if Golden State is getting the job done, then, you know, they're doing enough. They're not necessarily dominating. And if they are, which they kind of have been, I mean, it's because Boston can't hit their shots, so the total's been staying under. So long story short, I think Boston wins this game, which means I would correlate this with the total going over. And instead of betting on Boston to win the game, because I do want Golden State to win, I bet over 210. So I'm hoping Golden State wins and the total goes over 210. But I think we're going to see a decent amount of points in this game. And I think this is the lowest mark the total's been at pre-flop. So yeah, I put some stock in this total going over for Game 6, and we're absolutely rooting for the Dubs tonight.
Danny, quickly here, should I bet on Game 6, Clay making his return tonight? I believe his total points is set at 20.5.
Man, I had my buddy yesterday. He was telling me, he's like, man, I'm going all in on Clay. And I think he had like 19.5, so it must have gotten steamed up. I don't hate it, but personally, I would probably only bet it if you got it in the 18.5 to 19.5 range, which, of course, is why I'm not betting it. But I'm definitely not telling anyone to go against it because history shows us Clay becomes an absolute dog when it's Game 6.
There he is, Danny Burke with us, Burke's Best Bets on a Thursday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. Danny, we'll let you get out of here. You have a lovely rest of your Thursday, all right, bud?
Hey, appreciate it, man. Take care.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. And I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we do, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Wrapping up a Thursday here on Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery, Elijah Herbel and Will Wilson. Remember, you can get connected with us on Twitter. That's the best way to reach out. If you have any comments about this show today, what you think I should have in store for you tomorrow, give me a tweet at Herbal Essences for myself or at Willie on the radio. That is for the man sitting right in front of me, Will Wilson. And Will Wilson and I really just taking over ESPN Lincoln today, as it was him and I this morning on the morning hookup. Today it is he and I on Hail Varsity Radio, and you'll hear Will Wilson again on the morning hookup tomorrow morning. Again, that's 9 to 11 ESPN Lincoln, and then you'll hear me, my beautiful voice, 4 to 6 tomorrow, Hail Varsity Radio, before Schmidt makes his return from Denver. I guess he'll be doing the show from Denver, makes his return to the show on Saturday morning. Elijah Herbel and Chris Schmidt, I think, also joined by Mark Kranak on Saturday, as that runs from 7 to 9 here locally. Our listeners across the state can check that out via the podcast form. I already told you about all those: Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Hail Varsity's YouTube page. A lot of great options for you to catch the full podcast. And then no show Monday before Schmidt makes his return to Lincoln next Tuesday. Will, before we get out of here tonight, I'm going to let you know it is Thirsty Thursday at Haymarket Park. The Salt Dogs are playing in town, so you already know where I'm going to be tonight. I'm going to be down at Haymarket Park checking out the Dogs as they're going for a series victory over the Lake Country Dockhounds. It's only the third appearance between the Salt Dogs and the Dockhounds, the previous two being the last two nights. So looking forward to the Salt Dogs taking the all-time series over the Dockhounds 2-1 tonight, if all goes to plan. What about you? Do you have anything in the cards for your Thursday evening? Oh, let me turn your mic on.
Thanks. I will be going over to I'm gonna be watching the game with my dad tonight. Gonna have some dinner with him. Mom's out of town, so I'm gonna go keep him company. And, I'm going to be doing that. I'm excited.
Sounds like good stuff. And then you're back in tomorrow morning. Am I in with you tomorrow morning?
That'd be great if you got nothing going on.
Well, I'm going to be over on KFOR anyway from 6 to 9, so I'll already be here.
Good. Well, awesome. Things are working out great then.
Everything is looking up for the Elijah Herbel and Will Wilson experience, as it always is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are smooth guys. Everything runs smooth around here, just so you all know.
Before we get out of here, you want to do a quick, no stakes on it, but just a quick wager between this Golden State and Boston game tonight?
Yeah, I'll take Boston to win, straight up.
Boston to win, not cover or no?
No. What's the spread, 4?
4.
Yeah, why not? I'll take him to cover.
So Will Wilson takes... I'll go the other way.
Okay.
I'll take Golden State to cover at least +4. I'll say, at least they're going to cover +4, if not win outright. If I was a betting man, I might take Golden State money line here to close the series out. Something tells me that it's time for either Klay Thompson or Steph Curry to put the team on their back and will them to a performance. But we'll have to get updated on this tomorrow morning as we'll figure out who wins this little light stakes wager as Will is pulling out his tip money from the bar. I think you want to put money on it?
I was just gonna, we're betting, so
It's a friendly wager. It's for pride only. So we'll figure that out. Tip-off in Game 6 is tonight at 8 o'clock. Coming up here on ESPN Lincoln, we'll have first pitch between the Salt Dogs and the Dock Hounds coming up in about an hour. For everyone listening across the state, we appreciate you. Hail Varsity will be back tomorrow from 4 to 6. Thanks.
A Hurrdat Media Production.